All right. Hello, everybody. I wanted to make a little video here. This is for the extra credit. So first extra credit, grammar. I don't know why, but every quarter, a lot of students say they want to improve their grammar. I think that that's a good thing. But I'll reiterate throughout the quarter that the ideas have to be there first. So just kind of bear in mind that this is important. It's important stuff to know, but make sure that you're focusing on ideas first. So the common errors that I see students do, or the most common errors, and this is in no particular order, are things like semicolons, commas, tone, repetition, capitalization, and active and passive voice. So in order to kind of dive into this, and again, this will hopefully be a relatively short video, I want you to think about which one of these are problems or things that you've run into or things that other English instructors have commented on. Now, I'm not going to go into a big, long lesson on all the different elements of grammar or diagramming sentences. I don't think it's super helpful, but I do want to talk about a couple things that will help. So the first one is independent clauses. So it's something that can stand on its own, just like an independent person. So the penguin exploded. That is independent, right? We've got a noun and we've got a verb. Something happened. If I walked up to you and said the penguin exploded, you would understand what I meant. Or if I said the students did not want to take the final exam, also independent clause. So we've got a full sentence, right? That's an independent clause. So complete sentence, it has a subject, so something's happening. It has a verb, and it is a complete thought, right? So if I said, right, my example here, Joe said, that's not a complete sentence, right? Just the same as if I said the penguin, you'd be like, I don't know what you're talking about. So I need to have some sort of complete thought there. Joe said he was hungry. So why is that important? Well, a lot of students will talk or write in fragments. We talk in fragments all the time, but it's when we write in fragments that things get tricky. So fragments are incomplete sentences or not independent clauses. So things like went to the store or ate the pie. Well, we might say those things. They are sentence fragments, and they don't present a complete thought, right? Now, the next thing that we can do if we have two independent clauses is we can use a semicolon. Semicolons are a lot like periods. It's a way to say, here's an independent clause, a complete thought, and here's an independent clause. So Joe went to the store, period, he bought a marsupial. I can use a semicolon there as well. The only difference is, of course, we're not going to capitalize right after the semicolon. Now, I will say, overuse of semicolons starts to look pretty pretentious. And the only time that you have to use a semicolon is in a longer list. But I don't think that that's going to be as much of an issue this quarter. So commas, again, commas are tricky. And I think part of it is because we're taught to place a comma anywhere you hear a pause, and then you start hearing pauses any freaking place, right? So places that we know we have to use them in a list, right? So we went to the store to buy milk, eggs, and butter. And so we've got a comma after each thing. That last comma after eggs there in that example is considered optional. It's an Oxford comma. I think it's an important comma to have, so I will often tell people to add it, but it's one of those not entirely a rule. After an introductory clause, right? So here I have, after we won the game, comma, we went to the store to buy donuts. We went to the store to buy donuts is independent, right? That's an independent clause. That's a sentence. After we won the game is not. So after we have that, we're going to have a little comma. After a transition word like however, to set off a positive, which is like, kind of like, think of it as like a whispering or an aside. So Michael, comma, the English professor taught us how to use commas. You could leave that, the English professor, out of that, and it would still be a fine sentence, right? Michael taught us how to use commas. And then usually before a coordinating conjunction, so for and, nor, but, or yet so. We were eager to go to the game, comma, but it began to rain. So again, pretty general. A lot of grammar checkers will catch these things for you. Now, tone is tricky, and we'll talk about tone more directly later in the quarter. But in the meantime, there are just some basics that I would clue you into or tune into, right? The first one is to avoid the second person, the use of the pronoun you. A lot of reasons for that. The biggest one is we don't always know who our reader is. If we do know, say in an email or a video lecture or something like that, where we're talking to a particular audience, then the you is often at least okay, at least in informal situations. I would also suggest avoiding the first person, especially in English 102, where we're doing a lot of research and we're not the experts, so we're relying on other people's expertise. So if I said, you may be curious about AI. Well, I don't know if my reader is or isn't. A better example would be to say, many people are curious about AI. Or if I said, I think that AI is going to be dangerous in the future, I can fix that by just saying AI will be dangerous in the future, right? So again, it's just a simple rewording, but it will make a pretty significant difference. All right, repetition. This is also sometimes called tautology, just as a way that we're repeating something that we've already said. And we do this a lot as well. So, example, the cookies were stolen by the cookie thieves. Well, that makes sense. So we could probably shorten that just to the cookies were stolen. We worked all day from morning to night. Well, morning to night is part of all day. So just we worked all day. Now, the kind of reason that I say that this is important is because it shortens our prose. It makes it a little bit more concise, and our reader isn't going to get lost in things. Okay. Active and passive voice. Now, just something to bear in mind. There are a lot of people who say you can never use passive voice. That's not true. Almost everybody who says that you can't use passive voice uses passive voice. So the main thing is active voice is preferred, and there are some times to use passive voice. I'm not going to go into the details on that, but the conventions are for active voice, right? So the subject is doing the acting as opposed to passive voice where the subject is being acted upon. So for active voice, I could say Joe kicked the aardvark. He's the subject, he's doing the thing. The passive voice would be the aardvark was kicked by Joe. So again, simple reordering of the sentence. Capitalization. Again, proper nouns. Proper nouns are capitalized. So things like Shoreline Community College or the American Journal of Pediatrics or the Seattle Symphony, specific things get those capitals. Now, not all things are proper nouns. So common nouns include just community college in general, rather than a specific one, high school in general, class, book, author. And there's no need to capitalize the internet. Earth should be capitalized if you're talking about the planet. There you go. A couple bonus things here real quick. All right. So it's, so the contraction here, it is for it's. ITS is a possessive, and ITS apostrophe is not a thing. We also want to make sure that we're clear. So here we have dangling modifiers. So that just means, while eating pizza, comma, the phone rang. Well, was the phone eating pizza or was I eating pizza? So again, easy fix there. Well, we were eating pizza. Now, like I said, kind of at the outset, a lot of grammar checkers will catch these things. I think they're important to know. When you think about grammar and mechanics and punctuation, think about what the purpose is, right? So the entire purpose for commas, for semicolons, for capitalization, all of it is to make things clear and easy for the reader so that there's no misunderstanding. So although there are a lot of nuances to grammar, there are things about grammar that are above and beyond my knowledge or what I care to learn, right? There are people who study this, linguists and grammarians. My interest is entirely on how do we avoid the silly errors that will confuse somebody, make somebody pause, or make somebody lose kind of confidence in what we're saying. So again, have awareness of these things. There is software out there that will help, but it's still fallible. So my last sort of thing, and then I'll end this video, is be careful about using something like a thesaurus. I think that we have a tendency to want to use big words because big words sound smart. The problem is that can backfire if the word isn't quite right. And I see this in professional writing, and I see it in student writing. But using a big word just to use a big word often doesn't make us sound smart. It makes us sound pretentious, or it makes us look silly if the word doesn't mean what we thought it meant. All right, so there you go. If you have other questions, comments, concerns, jokes, memes, or recipes, let me know. Otherwise, I'll talk to you all later. Oops.